Welcome to my channel where we share all things paranormal, and tonight we have another set of scary stories for you. In today's video, we will be reading from the r/scary subreddit, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it. Our first story is going to be titled Scratch Marks. This happened about 12 years ago when I was still living with my parents in a small town in England. We decided that we wanted to move into a city center and rented out our home. The people who moved in were a young couple, Tom and Lisa. They seemed nice enough and always paid rent on time. One day my dad popped over to check the heating system, as he had done every 3 months since they'd been living there. He noticed some scratch marks on one of the bedroom walls and thought nothing of it until he saw them in other rooms too. At first he assumed that it was just some kids being naughty, It's the usual stuff that happens when you have a big house with lots of bedrooms. On the second viewing, he realized that the marks were made by fingers. He told my mom, who laughed at the idea of ghosts, and said that they probably just needed to repaint the walls. A week later, she went to the house with my sister and I to see the scratch marks, and to our horror, the marks had multiplied. The next time was the final straw. My dad, fed up with these ghost freaks, decided to investigate. All the walls were covered with hundreds of scratch marks, mostly in bedrooms and the bathroom. Some looked like single finger marks, and others like long fingernails. All of the markings were heading towards the front door. Tom and Lisa were called to the house and confronted with the evidence. Were shocked and scared, insisting that they'd never seen anything like this before. They packed their things and left the house immediately. The house stayed empty for a year because nobody would rent it. Eventually my parents sold it and moved us back in. I'm now an adult and the scratch marks are still there. No one ever found out who or what was making them. But every time I walk past those doors, I can't help but think that maybe it wasn't ghosts after all. Maybe it was something much, much worse. And that was our first story. Our next story is going to be titled Demonic Presence. When I was 18, I lived with 5 other students in a house. It was an old building with creaky floorboards and weird drafts. One room didn't have a lock on the door, so my friends and I would sometimes play jokes on each other by opening the door slowly and creeping in while someone was sleeping. We never did this, though, without knocking first. One night I was awoken in my bed by a loud bang. I assumed someone had come into my room to play a prank. But when I turned to look, there was no one there. I thought nothing of it and went back to sleep. This happened almost every night, though, and eventually it got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. I went to the common room and confronted my flatmates. They all swore they weren't doing it and had no idea what I was talking about. I'll admit that I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. So I asked my friend if he could stay with me that night to keep me company. Well, he agreed, and I went back to my room. To my surprise, my door was wide open. I slammed it shut and locked it, then went back to bed. About an hour later, I was awoken again, this time by the sound of whispering coming from outside my door. I started to panic and shook my friend awake. He told me to calm down and said that he'd go investigate. As he left the room, I heard the whispering stop. I don't remember what he said exactly, but he came back into the room looking very shaken. He told me that he couldn't explain what was going on, but that I should probably change rooms for my own peace of mind. The next morning, I told everyone in the flat about what had happened the previous night. None of them believed me, which stung a little bit. But I didn't want to make a fuss, so I just moved into the common room for the rest of the year. Looking back, I think it was probably just some trick of my mind, but I'm glad that I got out of that house as fast as I could. That was our second story. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. And if you want to hear more scary stories, then make sure to subscribe.